Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of No Vacancy Live. We are here at Wynn Resorts in their podcasting studio here, and I'm with the incredible Anthony Melchiori and our fabulous guest today, the president of Wynn Design and Development, Todd-Avery Lenahan. It is so great to see you, Todd.
Fantastic to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Listen, it's fantastic to be here with you because I love the design that you do, but also the studio's pretty darn cool too.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool space. Yeah, it's good to see you guys again. I think this is round 2 or 3 for us.
Well, round 3 with him, round 2 with me.
There you go.
But I have a question for you. I have 0 design experience. I have 0 flair. I'm colorblind. But why do you have my job? I should have your job. You have like the coolest job. I know it's hard work, and I know you put a lot of time into it.
Freaky Friday trading spaces, trading places.
Yeah, but the bodies are supposed to look different.
I think we could do it.
I think we can make it work.
But you know, everybody that knows me knows that this is my home away from home. I was in one of your beautiful suites yesterday, and I'm doing a Zoom, and I have 2 really comfortable pillows at my arms with my legs crossed on your couch with Vegas behind me, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, God has been good to me, man. I was like, how did I get here?
You've earned that.
I was like,
space.
I was so comfortable.
Yeah.
You're everything about, like, even I was telling you, breakfast this morning, everything's comfortable. Breakfast was delicious. It was up, it was warm. Everything's just, I just love this place.
It's great to hear you to say that it was comfortable, because that's something that's often not spoken of, but it is at the top of the list of priorities.
Well,
for
isn't
us.
that the whole point of design, for it to really kind of be invisible? I mean, just kind of meld in with your lifestyle?
Yeah, because comfort isn't just something that you feel physically. You know, comfort imparts something on your mindset,
right?
On something on your whole countenance, the way you feel. And comfort is difficult to design to because it's so subjective. You know, what's the barometer of measure for comfort? So we have to find what we think or what we believe that is for a really broad cross-section of people. And when I hear somebody like you say that you are comfortable before you talk about the specifics of the aesthetic, that's incredibly validating for us. It's really, really wonderful.
Well, I think you guys have been validated.
Thank you. Yeah. We love hearing that.
Yeah. So how do you start to think about that particular process of making sure people are comfortable, particularly when you're connecting with large groups of people that are all very different in their psychographic? One group wants this, one group wants another thing, and you're trying to appeal to everybody. But a lot of times when you try to appeal to everyone, you wind up appealing to no one, but you don't have that.
And we know
very
hotels
well
that
said,
do that.
though. That's true. Well, you know, a part of it comes from being a really great consumer of the experience yourself. That's why I encourage so many of our younger design team, whether they're a landscape architect, an interior designer, an architect, a lighting designer, you have to be a great student of our industry and our business first and foremost. Because it's
Todd, let me just jump in there real quick, because I think that this is a real problem in our industry. Yeah. I spend so much time in hotels saying to myself, did the designer not think this through? Did they not sit in this chair that doesn't make sense with this desk? Did they not, check the lighting? Did they not think about all of these things?
Yeah,
and it seems like you're really focused on those little details that everybody glosses over.
Very much so. As I was saying, you've got to be a great student of the experience yourself. We were talking before we were on air that, as a kid, I used to stay at a lot of Howard Johnson's. My family lived around the world and we traveled around America quite a bit. And at the earliest ages, I was always sort of forensically deconstructing hotel rooms and motel properties. We didn't get to stay in properties that had what I called inside hallways until I was about 10. We were always a motel family.
Stayed back then.
We were a motel family.
Yeah.
And so the quality of the experience is something that I've really been sort of processing for decades. But today, as an adult, I look at it through a very different lens. And I can tell you, when I sit with younger designers in particular that are so quick, let's take your hotel room. They're very quick and apt or adept at clicking in with AutoCAD, blocks and shapes. And I always, when I walk to their desk, I ask them to push their mouse pad and the mouse to the side and take out a pencil and draw those discrete elements that are in that little micro environment, because it's the most intimate environment in the hotel. It's the only place in the hotel where you're by yourself. And use a pencil and really place yourself in that space, moving from chair to bed to bathroom, reading, having private dining, doing a conference call, and think about the proxemics and the ergonomics, because that's critical to comfort, even before you get to how deeply upholstered is the chair, what's the density of the mattress. Even before you get to that, it's about proxemics and ergonomics, because that's where you start when you're trying to evaluate comfort.
Yeah, and unfortunately, to Glenn's point, most hotels don't do that. It's like it's just cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, and it doesn't work. Last night, I was playing poker in your room, and I came to bed, and I was tired. I had a scotch or two, and I wanted to shut the lights. I was like, oh. I was like, do I have to get up with it? And I literally went
and turn
like
off all
this.
400 lamps.
I literally went like this. Literally like that.
Yeah,
I didn't have to push. I just touched it.
Yeah.
All the lights went off. And I was like, oh, the shades. Oh, boom. Didn't have to move more than this muscle. And everything is done. And that's what I talk about with comfort.
that simplicity, simplicity is actually one of the most complex things to achieve in design.
Right, because everybody gets so into it and complicated that it mucks up the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
the simplicity and simplistic and simple are not the same thing. Yeah. But simplicity in terms of user interface is very complex work.
And people make their lives complicated. They make their environments complicated. And I love hotels that do what you do. And you say the simplicity of it, especially your customer. We were talking off camera. Your customer is addicted to your brand. I'm addicted to your brand. Like we were talking that.
Thank you.
Just so you know, Glenn.
The
Fish group. We're talking out of these mics 5 minutes.
Right, I know, and I'm just thinking I might have sat in the chair,
So anyway,
the chair that Trey was in. But that's for another day.
Anybody knows Glenn knows he's a big fish fan. They were just here, but anyway. But
I was
he's
wondering
addicted
why this
to fish.
smells like a hush puppy.
I know.
But again, the reason, so if I said to you, Glenn, why are you? I'm obsessed with the Wynn because I'm a hotel guy. Why are you obsessed with fish? What is it their brand has built that they designed that you go to 200 fish shows?
Right. Well, I think it comes down to the emotional connection, which is something that I think you're going to talk about as soon as I stop speaking. Right. I love the sense of community. I love live music, and I love the fact that they're a little bit theatrical, right? I'm here in town. We're doing this great interview, and this weekend I'm going to go see them at the Sphere, and I'm excited to see how they're going to be able to connect with us as an audience with a brand new artistic palette. And I think that's something like you get to think about every time you get to create a new property.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times the perception, though, is that we start with a blank canvas.
Right.
In some ways, yes, but there's a lot more sort of invisible line work that we have to stay within on that.
So
canvas.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's so many considerations, technically, psychologically, legally. There's so many considerations that inform that loose thinking. I'm so envious of, say, a great abstract painter, because they really have only the parameters of the canvas to work within. Anything that they're moving around on the canvas can be of the moment. But a hospitality designer is constantly sort of triangulating amongst an enormous list of considerations that have to be in every line at its genesis. Everything has to be done with incredible intention. And so it's a highly technical process married with a highly artistic process. The outgrowth of the technical work isn't always something that the consumer experiences, but it gives integrity to the creative work. Because if you don't have that rigid framework of things that are well resolved, then the emotion of what you've created can be undermined by something that doesn't function.
So do you think some other companies, they either don't want to spend the resources, everybody's always rushing to do something, announce a big project like we were talking about before, maybe before it's ready, before it's really, really developed. Why does your team and your company, why do every single time you do something, you do it better and bigger and it works? Is it just that you spend more time, more resources? Because to me, in my opinion, you outpace the competition by a long stretch. It's not a nose and nose, neck and neck race. You guys are pretty much in the lead all the time. So is it just time, resources? What is it that? And I understand everything you're talking philosophically. I understand all that, but there's a culture, and I hate that word, but there's something in the water. What is it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I mean, that could be an entirely separate conversation. There are so many companies in this industry that have extraordinary product and extraordinary people.
Absolutely.
But I think some of the things that you're finding appealing or attractive to you about our company has to do with our values and our priorities. So if you were to compare us to a company that somebody considers a competitor, and if they were to say that we excel in these areas, it might not be that we're better at it. It might be that their values and priorities are different than ours, and theirs are different with intention. And so to compare our aesthetics to another company and say that ours are better, well, I think better is relative, because some other companies might have aesthetics at a different place in the hierarchy of what's important to them for their particular customer. But in terms of what's in the water, it really starts with incredible care. We have people that care, which is a difficult word to quantify, but people that care about what we do and the experiences we create for our customers.
We were just talking about the poker room manager.
That is
he was amazing,
really extraordinary. And it also is because we are truly a vertically integrated company.
Right.
A lot of what you see in our industry today, between REITs and brands versus ownership, operator,
True.
We're a vertically integrated company, which for us is about complete control.
Right.
So when you're talking about quality of the experience, we have complete control of everything from land acquisition to the flower that's placed on your in-room dining table 6 years later when the cart's pushed into your room.
Right. Now, Todd, you stole my thunder, because my next question was going to be around this sort of thing, because typically in the main hospitality industry, the major brands are developing construction prototypes that are good for all owners out there. If you're building full service hotels, it's usually, in partnership with a lot of different stakeholders out there. As the owners, the operators, and right there in your title, President of Design and Development, you do have that singular control from start to finish, and you don't have to worry about watering down the product to make other stakeholders happy. So I think that is a real defining difference right there.
Absolutely. Yep. Well said.
So let's talk a little bit about that in the context of some of the projects you're working on.
Sure.
First, we'll talk a little bit about the New York project in a minute. That I guess you'll see whether or not you get the license for the gaming in New York City in a year from now or so. But you're already in the middle of construction in United Arab Emirates. First of all, I would never have expected any countries in the Middle East to be legal with gaming. But the fact that you got that license and now you're building a massive new resort, how is that going? What is that experience like? And I'll also want to see how you're dealing with different cultures in different parts of the world too at some point.
Well, it's been a rich and dynamic experience. And you're right. I think based upon some of the press, there was I think you wrote a note to me a while ago saying, will you be at the groundbreaking? And I said, well, that was about 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I think, a $3.9 billion project for the published numbers on that.
Yes.
That's why,
it's a significant investment, but the project is going great. It's been a really fantastic experience for us. Our properties that we have in North America and in Asia have been incredibly successful, but this has required us to do some rigorous thinking about what is it that's in the Wynn DNA that can really be directly transplanted without dilution, because it's what's expected of us. But how do we build on that and do something that is incredibly contextual, market specific, relevant to the consumers in that part of the world, and has great staying power? Because, projects like this, they take so long in the development and design and construction.
And how long does it usually take?
That you've got to be state of the art on the day you open, so that even 5-7 years after opening date, the product still really has relevance.
Right. And that's what's amazing that people don't understand. When you build these projects, you're not building them for opening day. You're building them 20 years from now, right? Like, look at this property we're sitting in. It was 20 years old almost.
We're almost 20 years old.
And it still is relevant as any product out there, if not more.
Yep.
What's the one thing that you can talk about that has been the biggest eye-opener challenge for you to work in that part of the world, whether it be design, whether it be whatever it is? What's the biggest?
It's that it is the most diverse demographic of guests we will have ever had at any of our properties.
Wow.
Yeah, the customer base that we have in China we know exactly where they're coming from. We know their expectations, their psychographics,
Right.
their
And just so
demographics.
people who are listening and watching understand, in Macau, it's much more of a go and sit at the gaming table for like 24 hours type of culture.
That has shifted.
It's
quite
shifting a little bit? Oh, that's good.
Post-COVID, it has shifted quite a bit.
Interesting.
So even though we know that consumer very well, that consumer's expectations have advanced rapidly in a very short period of time. The customer has shifted younger. The expectations they have on everything from food and beverage to entertainment to things that are off the casino floor has
because back in the day, it used to be people eating at the gaming table while smoking cigarettes constantly, right?
But now, I think if you were to walk through our properties today, you may not recognize you may not recognize the customer.
So it's becoming a lot more like the experiences here, for example.
In some ways. In some ways.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So then in the Middle East, you get all of these different groups of people that are going to be coming to stay with you.
Yeah,
You're in a new part of the world.
From the Middle East, we have people from Europe, we have people from Russia. It's people from the Far East.
Right.
And so we've had to think about the different motivations for those people coming to a property like this, because in Las Vegas, these started as casinos. Our property there has a casino in it, but it is not a casino. The casino is a discrete component of an incredible resort destination.
So where this is a casino resort, that's a resort that has a casino. Would that be a fair way to? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously the casino is an incredibly important part of the business objectives of the project. But in that market, we're going to have a lot of people, even within, the single family structure. A family comes, it might just be the dad or the mom that wants to be in the casino.
Right.
And so how do we engage the rest of the group that has no interest with the gaming experience? So it's challenged us to think about what we do to really add depth and texture to the on-premise experience.
And what percentage of people today, and you can use Vegas as an example, that don't even touch the casino floor, don't even gamble at all? Like,
it's changed a lot. There's many people here. If you were to compare this market to what it was, even 15 years ago, there's people that have a fantastic time with us. Yeah. Their spend level here is high, but none of it's gone into a table or a machine.
Well, your food and beverage product here is second to none. It's unbelievable.
And we have more great stuff happening.
And you're looking at me like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Food and beverage it's like the fashion industry, and the consumer expects that. So I would say of all of the different business units, food and beverage is one of the dimensions of our business that requires constantly being state of the art, being relevant. It's very competitive. The consumer is more educated and discerning than they've ever been before. Right. And so you can't get too comfortable.
No, because you're not just competing against other products in your location. You're competing against every product in the world because your consumer has visited that.
We really compete. We consider our greatest competition ourselves.
Yeah. But each place you create one of these resorts, you have to think about in a very different way. Now, the Middle East property, which is going to be on an island, right, is much more of a destination resort, I'm guessing, whereas when you're approaching the design in New York City, fundamentally it's going to be a lot different for how you think people are going to use it, is my hunch.
Well, exactly. New York City, there'll be great demand from a business traveler because of its adjacency to the Javits Center.
Right.
It has a residential component. It's a part of a very strong, existing, thriving neighborhood.
Right.
So the design of that project and so many of the sensibilities that have informed its planning and design are about being a fantastic neighbor to a neighborhood that pre-exists.
Yeah.
We have to arrive as a great neighbor.
Right. Which is why you're including a school and other elements into that project.
Whereas in the Middle East, we're the first. We're the first in that region. And so we are creating the context that others will be the beneficiaries of.
It's interesting because the neighborhood that if it goes forward in New York, that neighborhood 15 years ago, you wouldn't put a hotel there because there was nothing there to want to really go to that part of New York. And what I also love about it is it's in and out quick because you're right on the Upper West Side. You can get in and out of the city. You can get to the George Washington Bridge so quickly. It's such a convenient. You don't have to go into the middle of the city. I just think it's a great location, and I wish you luck with getting
Well,
licensed.
we're excited about it. It's an amazing site because we are a resort company.
Yep.
And the fact that it's on the river and has this incredible park that we're creating allows us to create something that for New York City really will be
And like
a fabulous urban resort. Because you know as a New Yorker that the ability to go to Central Park or to any little pocket of green is an incredible escape. And so why shouldn't New Yorkers be able to find a spot within quick proximity of them that makes them feel psychologically like they've really gone on a great voyage to a destination that has lifted them out of their everyday for a few hours. And so our design is very much about what I always refer to as kind of that magic condition where land meets sea. So wherever you've got land meeting water, as you do on the Hudson River, to be able to build a hotel there that's got a park and that really embraces the site and the neighborhood is fantastic. There's nothing in New York City like that.
And it really, you said it beautifully. I'm a New Yorker. I love New York. It's a great city in the world. I can't get enough of it. However, going to work, parking your car, and getting there on time literally is more energy than most people use in a month.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah,
So and you get so used to it that you don't even realize.
Right.
So when you have the ability to walk over to a resort like that and just escape, same thing with Central Park. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, what would New York be without Central Park? I don't think New York could exist without Central Park. I think we would all lose our friggin' minds.
Yeah.
You
Have
know?
you ever seen any of the old maps of New York when that was all farmland? It's really
100%.
fascinating to see.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Matter of fact, I was with my daughter in Central Park when she was a little girl, and they still had one of those stakes that they put into the ground because that's how they built it, on the grid. So there was a stake coming out of a rock in Central Park. I was like, I told my daughter, so you know what that is?
That's a great keeper.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Just to, again, share with our viewers, what's happening in New York State is they're going to be issuing 3 downstate licenses. That's from Westchester Below, New York City, Long Island. I'm pretty confident that you're going to get one, and the group on Long Island is going to get
have a crystal
one
ball?
of them. Well, yes, I don't.
Do you have any sway?
No.
Listen,
I am a board member of the Long Island
I'll take
Hospitality
the sway
Association.
before the crystal
Listen,
ball.
he has more sway than anybody in New York City.
Yeah.
He's going to run for mayor one day.
I wish. But that's pretty interesting that you have to think about all of these different types of components, but we really haven't talked about future proofing right now.
Yeah.
And we're in this like weird area where technology is moving so forward very rapidly and quickly that it's going to have to inform how you design some of these properties. Yet, I don't think typical consumer behavior is necessarily changing. We still want the same things at the end of the day.
We still want the same things with the caveat that I think we want them delivered to us faster.
Oh, yeah.
They need to be much more easy to understand, and they have to be adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the expectation.
And and then technology in hotels, that wasn't the thing. We put it in. We were talking. We're actually keynote speakers for high tech this year,
Right.
and we were talking. It's like you take the fax machine, right, in everybody's room, and then you take all this technology, and a lot of people didn't want it, like the kiosk. People just didn't want it, and it wasn't adaptable. It would just sit there for years because you couldn't do anything with it. And what I love about your resorts is every time I come, I feel like it's friction free, and it's getting more and more. So, kind of on the point of technology, how much? I know AI is very new, but, well, at least to us, how much AI is going into even design of what you're doing and technology implemented into the resorts?
Yeah, we've had some very spirited conversations about the applications of AI and how they could benefit what we're doing. It's a space that is controversial for us right now. I'll just break it down into very sort of layman's speak and how it's provoked dialogue within our group. We've had a couple of consultants that work for us that have done presentations where they've shown AI illustrations of what a space or an experience could be. I don't care for it because it is devoid of that deep human connection that has created that experience from one or several people's collective imaginings about what could be. You're relying on keywords that are pulling information
Right.
from massive databases to create what on the surface is impressive. Impressive is not always complimentary term.
Agreed.
It's just impressive in the truest sense of that word, but can be a little bit freakish. Now, when you're designing, we have so many things, to the point that I mentioned earlier, that we have to be considering as we're designing. AI knows really nothing about comfort. AI knows nothing about
Right.
codes. AI knows nothing about life safety. AI knows not much about proxemics and ergonomics. It doesn't know much about the five senses. And so it's creating something that is impressive as a quickly generated artistic impression,
Right.
but it doesn't have a lot of depth to it.
So what works for a YouTube thumbnail isn't going to work for something like this.
Yeah, and I
get it.
I see how that can make me sound like I'm
No, not at all, because,
evolving because
No,
I'm
I think
intrigued.
I think you explained it beautifully, because there is something lost. I know even when I use it for writing or whatever, I can get a thought, but then I have to go do the work.
Yeah.
I have to go in there and I have to feel that sentence. I have to feel what I'm working on. But do you think, with all that said, do you think it's inevitable in 10 or 15 years that it's just going to?
Oh, absolutely. Its utilization, its application is just going to continue to proliferate. But the challenge for various industries is to arrive at decisions about how applicable it is, how to exploit it, how to evolve the programming of it so that it really does deliver something that's meaningful as an end result and not just impressive. Because I feel like in many instances right now in our industry, it's impressive, but beyond that initial impression, it does not yet have value for us.
And then maybe I'm sorry, go ahead, one second. And do you find that people that present you that sometimes can't speak to it the way someone that kind of drew it and really?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with somebody not associated with work who was showing me some of the spaces that they had created using AI, or that AI created for them based upon input they put in.
Well said.
And I was asking them specific questions about how they believed this particular presentation came to be. They did not have any command of the classic architectural vocabulary or the academic vocabulary to understand what it was that was in the image that for which they were trying to take authorship. And that's a problem.
Right.
Because I said, so talk about this element, and I was using the academic vocabulary. They had no idea what I was speaking of. Therein lies the problem.
And I think as it goes forward, that you're going to lose it.
Absolutely.
You're just gonna, when we gave kids a calculator.
Yeah.
You have a cell phone. Do you know anybody's phone number? I know no one's phone number.
Yeah.
I just know my childhood phone number.
If I felt like AI today was stimulating a higher level of thinking, greater thinking, that it was promoting more progressive work, I'd be quicker to latch onto it now. But my sense right now in the applications or the instances when it's been presented to me has been the result of people wanting to get through things expediently. There's a degree of laziness, and there's a lack of foundational understanding to have done the work themselves.
Right.
So they're relying on software, which is mining information from other places to create something that creates the illusion that they've developed something when actually it doesn't have a lot of depth or integrity.
And you give a really good explanation, and most people would say, well, he's been doing this a long time, and it's old thinking. You think like a 12-year-old, right? You think young. You're a young thinker. You wouldn't be doing your job.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're very much adaptable.
Yes.
Being thoughtful is not being old. It's being thoughtful. And it's being like, I like this. I like where it's going. However, what are you losing going forward? You're gaining something, but you're losing something. And it is easier to put something in AI and come out and say, okay, we'll do that. Yeah. Instead of having, it takes sometimes an hour to think of something creative, whereas now it takes 2 seconds and make sure you form the sentence correctly.
Yeah, if you think about the development of text messaging and all of the applications that allow a younger generation to quickly communicate something, and just straight communication isn't, of course, the same as really having a meaningful dialogue. look at how it has truncated that generation's ability to have really strong interpersonal relationships, because so much of their relating is done via
And you're
electronic
seeing it
impulse.
everywhere.
And that's what I think we want to make sure doesn't happen to our industry with the use of AI. We don't want to become that adolescent that that sort of lives behind the screen of their phone and is sending communication, but does not know how to truly interpersonally relate.
Yeah.
Make sense?
100%.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I think there is one technology out there, I think, that can unify us when it comes to design and get the various stakeholders to understand more. And I'm talking about VR. I don't like VR in my regular life, but I do see it having great applications for what you do, because then you could create a space, and for someone like
very
me
invested in it,
who can't understand how a property would look at by seeing a mood board, I could really experience it and know how that will work out.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a meeting yesterday, and we were showing some renderings we had produced, and there was a question from one of the people on the team, our operating team, about whether or not they'd be seeing this in VR. We had not planned to take this particular project into our VR lab. We actually have a VR lab and a VR field at our design innovation headquarters here in Las Vegas. And we don't do it for every space. And I explained to them that even the renderings that we were showing them don't have a benefit to us as the designer, because we're trained to exercise a talent that I think we're born with as designers, to be able to visualize spaces. If you can't create that space three-dimensionally in your mind, then you can't translate it to something two-dimensionally on paper. So we use VR not really as a tool to create the experience. It's used as a validation of the technical elements that could prevent us from having the full strength of the idea make it to the finish line. So it's great for what we call clash detection. How are the building systems coming together? The structure, the engineering, and it's very valuable for our operating team. You know, we built a new venue here, our Cafe Al Teatro, and we have a really accomplished food and beverage and culinary team, but their expertise is in food and beverage and culinary. And so to read kitchen plans is complex. It's not something that's in their training.
Right.
And so we created a VR of not the aesthetic components of the food and beverage venue, but of just the entire equipment and production line. So they could go through it and understand all of the points of the process. Where will the coffee pots be? Where will the espresso machine be? Where will the cup dispenser be? Where will the refrigerators be? What the heights of those elements were, where the cash drawers would be, where the monitors would be. And again, that's not something that we need as designers, because we do that in our head. But it's really beneficial to the operating team so that they know exactly what it is they're inheriting, and that they can advise us on the things that they know better about.
Right. So, for example, oh, no, this should be over here because it'll save 3 steps every 20 seconds or something like that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. That is a fantastic application for that sort of technology that I haven't heard before. Anthony?
So I have 2 questions, and they're separate, but they're important to me. We're starting a new show called Hotel All Stars. So we go in and we basically have people compete that would never think about the hotel business as a career, and they compete for a job. So we did Margaritaville in Hollywood, and we're launching the one in Breakers. We're airing it soon, and it's a competition show to get people interested in this great career.
Yeah.
How many people are on your team, and how many of those people on your team, including yourself, actually thought about being in the hotel business, but because they have a passion for design, a passion for whatever architecture, whatever they do, they're in the hotel business, but they never thought that there was this job in the hotel business?
I know the answer to that. It's a very small number. I'm one of them. I think you know, Glenn, from our prior conversations, I've worked in hotels continuously, even while I was in architecture school, since I was 14. So I knew that this was my place. I think I knew it when I stayed in those first Holiday Inns and Howard Johnson's, you know. The people that I know in our studio that saw themselves being hospitality designers, probably out of 120 people in Las Vegas, it's probably 4 of them. The other, 116 love being in our industry, but I think it's a smaller number of people that knew at a very early age that that designing resorts and hotels afforded them the breadth of experience and depth of experience that it would.
Think of your experience, what you've done in your career, the places you've traveled, the places you stayed at, the food you've eaten, the people you've got to meet, the creation that you've been able to do. There is no industry in the world that could do that. So if you want to be a lawyer, we have a lot of lawyers in this industry.
Right.
You want to be an architect. So my point being is that if you want to be in this business, okay, you can be anything. You don't have to be a front desk clerk. You don't have to be a salesperson. You can be an architect, a lawyer. You can be a doctor, okay, and still be in the hospitality business, right, sir?
Right. But I was several of those things.
What's that?
I was several of those things.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only person in my position in the industry that has worked in all of those operational positions.
And that's what makes you...
Which has hugely informed my career. You know, I couldn't have the dialogue that I do with so many of the different divisions of our company or my clients, because, you know, I had my own firm for many, many years. Had I not made beds, had I not cleaned tables, had I not done night auditing, had I not been a concierge, had I not been a bellman, had I not been in the front lines operating these properties.
It's impossible to like. I've had consultants that are 24 years old coming out of these Ivy League schools, and auditing the businesses, and I'm just like, listen, if you're small, I don't care if you're 12. I work for anybody, but you better be able to answer the second question. I know you can answer the first question, but if you can't answer the second question, because you're asking me a question that I can answer thoroughly, but I'm going to ask you questions. And if you can't answer them, you have no business asking me questions. So, all right. So now my second question.
You say it just like that too?
Probably a lot gentler.
Temperate.
You can imagine. When I was on TV, my assistant calls me up and she said, boss, I said, yeah, Alice. She goes, when are you going to be you? I go, what? I said, that's me. She goes, you're a lot crazier in person. That's not true. So, how often, and I'm not asking if you do, I know you do. How often do you just sit with your thoughts and create? Meaning, do you go somewhere once a week, once a day, once a month, and you're just like, boom, shut everything off and just go into your space, your mental space?
Not as much as I love to. I do it. I do it a lot. The best thinking does not happen during the day in my office. I produce the heart and soul of almost everything I create occurs outside of the office. Right. But it doesn't happen on a golf course. You know, I'm not a golfer, but it wouldn't happen on the golf course if I was.
They have a beautiful golf course here.
My home is me, my spouse, and I have 2 little dogs. And there's a time at night when all the lights in the house generally go off, except for 2 lamps that I have on my drawing table. And the house is quiet. The air condition is set really low. I like it cold. And I create.
Nice.
And I draw and I draw and I draw. And I love that time. It's fertile time. I do have at the office, my digital team created for me a life-size copy of a traffic light. And on one side, the traffic light, the red is lit up, and on the other side, the green is lit up. And I hang it on my door because my office is all glass, so you can always see me. I never hide behind a door or walls. But when I need that time to sit and create, I put the red light on, and people know that that's when I am, the genesis of something is happening. I have to lay down lines, and it's constantly at risk of being cut short. And I have to even remind people within our company that if I'm not laying down lines, then everything stops.
Right.
Because everything starts with those lines. It's interesting, you know, I've had a couple of assistants in the past that have said, well, Todd, your calendar's wide open. You don't have anything going on today, because they think that if I don't have a formal meeting on the calendar, that I'm free and I'm not doing anything. And I always have to remind them that my key role is creating IP for this company. And I have to sit and create and create and create and create.
And if somebody is coming in and interrupting you, it throws you off. I know.
Well, I use the analogy all the time. I say I feel like I'm a gymnast and I'm on a balance beam, And it's a very, very intense
Totally.
routine. And I can tell you, when I have the red light on the door and my phone rings or somebody knocks on the door, it shakes me and I can fall off that balance beam.
Totally.
Because the ideas are coming so quick. And again, there's that triangulating. It's like a GPS trying to determine where you are, because I'm thinking of 3 dimensions. I'm thinking emotionally, and I'm extracting decades of experience from my personal database. Because people always say, where do your ideas come from? It comes from my life. I'm not a magazine. I don't turn pages of magazine.
They still have those?
And put Post-it notes on pictures of things that I think are interesting.
wow.
I don't do that. I don't look at Pinterest. I admire my peers' work, but I don't study it as inspiration. I find that very polluting of what I need to do as a pure idea. So I draw on my own database and just getting that the everything turning and churning in your head, because it's a very introverted process. Design is very solitary. I told that recently to my CEO. Our studio is incredibly spirited. It's boisterous. There's talking, there's laughing, there's collaborating. But the process of creating something powerful for me is a very introverted, solitary process.
I understand that. I remember when I first got on TV and people say, do you watch this show or that show? And I go, no. And they're like, why? I said, because they're amazing at what they do.
Yes.
They're my favorite hosts on TV. They're brilliant. Anthony Bourdain being one of them.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't watch his show. And I said, why? I said, because I do not want to copy anything, because he is so good and I think I'm good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rely on my instincts. But if I watch him, I'm going to steal something because he's that good.
But you'd love to meet with him. You'd love to talk with him.
course.
You'd love to know him.
They're
So
some
it's
of
like
my
me saying,
friends.
even though I'm not looking at magazine pages and tagging them or Pinterest,
Right.
Yep.
I'm still a student of everything that's happening, but I'm a student of it by experiencing it. And many of the things that inform my design have nothing to do with tangible design by others. I created entire spaces based upon an experience I had in a canyon, hiking. I've designed and it doesn't look like a canyon that I've created. I've had entire experiences that are born of my appreciation of the way a certain orchestral composition was written. So I source things that seemingly have no relationship to the built environment, more so than I source from other built environments.
Where do you get your confidence from? Because a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. I'd be a number one poster child for that.
Oh, I don't know that. I guess you're sort of
Confidence in
you're being
design and what
presumptive
you're.
that I'm confident, huh?
Well,
I
unless
think
you have the same problem I have with
I always have artistic insecurity.
Yeah.
You always are I'm always questioning myself,
Mhm.
and I don't question if it's good enough. I question constantly if it's the right thing for the
Yeah, but you don't
charge.
question yourself of why am I good enough to be in this position? I would imagine you don't question that.
I don't question that.
Right.
I
And
don't
I think,
question
Len, you're
that.
talking more about what do you
generally, in general, but also what he's touching on there as well. That makes
I
sense.
don't question. I question
Yeah.
whether or not what I'm doing is right and best for this particular charge. Because, like a painter, a painter's goals or objectives are entirely their own, unless they've been commissioned to do a portrait or something for somebody. But what I do has a business motivation behind it, and so the things that that I have to constantly be checking in my mind to be sure of my meeting the business objective are intense, and it creates a lack of assuredness at various times.
Yeah, you have a lot of people, operations, banks, everybody from operations to the banks, everybody is in your business. When
Yeah,
you're looking
and that's
at
where the lack of assurance comes from. I'm never questioning myself. I know that what I'm doing is sound work, sound
Right.
product, and will result in something that's a solid A.
Right.
What happens is there is so much input, there is so much noise from so many people, and I don't mean noise in a pejorative way, that the question is, I'm visualizing the various stakeholders and people in my mind. What will this person say? What will this person say? What will this person say? Because sometimes people that are adjudicating your work speak in broad generalities.
Right.
And they'll say something like, well, this doesn't work and that'll never work. Those are very, it's an inappropriate and it's an incorrect generality,
Right.
because there's a lot of things.
So at
that
what age
work.
did you stop throwing things at them? At what age did you stop getting it taking it personally?
I still take it personally because design is art. It's extremely personal. That's why I do get very disappointed when I've shown something that's an incredible artistic expression, and somebody just says, "Okay, when's it going to be done?"
Right.
You get no emotional reaction from it. The product today that we present it digitally, it's on technical drawings. There's lots of conversations about construction and schedules, budgets. That in many conversations, the appreciation of the artistic endeavor is overshot and not discussed. And you only see what you see here because of deep personal commitment. Design is personal. That space, that element, that concept is an extension of me. It's very different than being a chef. A chef obviously has a great sense of propriety about what they're doing, but the tools, the palette they're working with is much more limited, and it's instant payoff.
Yeah. And it's instantly
Creating
gone to
spaces,
the
creating
world of
resort-
history.
Yeah,
if it
creating
doesn't
resorts
work.
is very personal
Yeah.
because when you're in my spaces that I've created, I have exposed myself. I've made myself very vulnerable, and I've put out there for the world things that come from deep within my life experience. And you are getting to sort of live in my mind and my heart. And so that isn't something I get to have a lot of conversations about. So I'm glad to have that conversation with you today.
Yeah.
And so it's extremely personal. And so when there are really dynamic conversations about what myself or my team have created, and it feels like there's a lack of appreciation, which is different than an admiration or a like of it, because design has so much subjectivity. You might not like that design decision, but do you appreciate the artistic endeavor? It's interesting. We can all walk through the museum. Let's say we were to go to MoMA tomorrow. There might be 6 paintings or sculptures that we don't like in that we wouldn't have them in our home and in our own personal sculpture garden, but we have a deep appreciation for that particular artist's commitment to the execution of that work, their idea. But in our industry, we often overshoot that, and there's not that appreciation. There's just an instant dismissal that I don't like it. It's not approved.
Yeah, and I think that that's true in life and what's going on in this country and around the world today, is that I don't have to like everyone, but I appreciate people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I wouldn't have over for dinner, but I really appreciate them.
There you go.
And that to me is absolutely critical. And it's when you said, like, if somebody, you showed somebody something and they're like, okay, when can it be done? That's such an insult, because it's like, as emotional people, as I'm not a designer, but I love design and I have an appreciation for it. And so I couldn't imagine you knowing how much work you put into something and all of a sudden sitting there and go, oh, that's great. When will that be done? That's beautiful. It's like you have to take a
even
second.
getting that's great and that's beautiful
was
very rare. And the reason I say is because at Wynn Resorts, that's not the case here. Our company is
you're built on it.
We're built on it. We're built on that passion. We're built on that personal experience.
Yep.
And there's a great love and appreciation for design. So that appreciation and admiration and respect for the artistic effort is huge within this company. It's why I'm here. I would never have merged my company with an organization that didn't have my same values. And so within this organization, it's really the antithesis of the experience I was just describing. But I know that experience exists within our business for many, many people. And I did experience it in the past. But within Wynn Resorts, it's really, it's the most appreciative environment. That's why you see what we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's absolutely beautiful. And speaking about caring for people, we got to worry about the team in there taking care of this. We got to get out. We got to get out of here for sure.
Can I have one more question?
Absolutely.
Okay. You have a great team. You have, I'm sure, a lot of young people coming in and out of your offices looking for positions. Tell me the last time someone that's relatively young and experienced came to your office and said, hey, boss, I got an idea, and blew your brains out. You're like, wow, I didn't expect that.
Yesterday around 6:15.
Really?
All right, so tell me.
Happens constantly. Happens constantly.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens constantly. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. The green light was on, so they knew to come up to the door and present that idea to me. But it happens routinely.
That's great.
Yeah,
It's great to hear.
I think people always have great ideas. People always have great ideas, but there's often not an audience or a forum for the great idea to come forward. So one of my key obligations and responsibilities and passions is to create a stage that really shy, quiet talent feels comfortable standing on and performing.
I'm going to clap that because that is such a critical point. Just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're the least important person in the room. I will take up space in the room. When I'm in the room, typically people know I'm in the room because I speak. But I have people a lot more talented than me, and like they don't get to shine because they're like dismissed while they're no. You have to give them a place to shine.
Yes.
So that's beautiful that you said that. That's my favorite thing. I'll shut up now.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we have to get going. This has been such an
Is that a good way
amazing
to
time
finish?
talking with you. Yeah, I feel like we could go on for another hour or two for sure. We'll have you on again, Anthony, with a good excuse to come back here.
You know, and honestly, I got to say this.
Yeah.
As a kid, I get emotional sometimes, but as a kid, wanting to be in this business, wanting people to know who I am, wanting to make an impact, and to be sitting here with you, you're a legend in this industry, and in this place that's, I think, one of the most beautiful places on earth, and for you to take the time to sit with us, like that means something to me. I want you to know this is just not a typical like podcast.
It's really my pleasure.
Like this really means that you would take the time, and I know you have some challenges going on right now. I just want to let you know that I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's reciprocal. It really is.
Well,
because
I take
to
it for
have
granted.
people that love what we do, I mean, it's a mutual fan.
And that I'm blessed to do this is crazy.
Yeah.
So
You're the best. Thank you so much
good
for
to see
being
you.
here. I
Yeah.
want to thank all of you for watching another episode here of No Vacancy. I will be back next week with a full slate of shows. Can't wait for that. In the meantime, why don't you subscribe to our newsletter? Text the word hotel to 66866. Get great content like this every single day. So until we see you next time, remember, guys, you've got one life, so blaze on. And Anthony,
be kind to yourself.
see you all later.